was wishing upon the brightest stars. I was praying to a God not so far.
Over the course of last summer, in 2012, I was trying to decide if I wanted to run away to California or if I wanted to continue pursuing a degree in art, because art was starting to seem kind of meaningless to me. I couldn't see the impact that it had on the world anymore, so I decided to throw an art gallery event called the Mad Show Music, Arts, and Dance that displayed a wide variety of artistic styles and mediums found both in our own community and from around the world, from people that I met while I was traveling. What I decided to do was interview 7 different artists from around our local community and see what their opinions were, what drove them, what inspired them, the type of people that they're reaching out to, and what their message was, and how important art was to them, because I assume anybody who's creating has some sort of drive, and maybe I could help them discover what that is as well, and sort of redefine what art is for all of us.
I think for me, creating things is part worship and part talking to myself. I can't remember a time when I didn't want to make things, so I can't really reach back behind that and ask what started me. But I think it's just part of human nature on the one hand, and on the other, some people are just more formed that way.
Mostly boredom, probably. Just being bored and be like, oh hey, paint. Random things.
What do you feel like inspires you to do art these days?
I think it's just life. I don't really consider myself as artist, or the thing I do is called photography. I just taking pictures. So like everything I say, it feels like I flash my eyes. So it's just what I see.
So what inspires you to create?
Just basically expression in general, just trying to explain my situation to anybody that can relate.
Mostly just like any kind of big event that happens in my life usually seems to motivate me the most. I mean, moving or a sudden change in mind or a sudden change in like relationships or family or basically any big emotional change kind of persuades me through art.
Generally, I reflect back on my older work, but over the years, I've found a lot of books and magazines throughout the course of history that kind of inspire me. I like to take old imagery and match it up with modern day issues or problems.
I like the style that creates too.
Yeah. A lot of word play in my art. I try to create an image coupled with the words, make people think outside the basic image that I create.
What inspires me the most? I think, the gratification of making something, period, no matter if it's a pair of moccasins or building something carpentry-wise. It's interesting because I kind of have this whole thing, this concept about being an artist with a label to me. I understand that, and yeah, I'm artistically inclined and I do things like that, but I don't go, I'm an artist. I just kind of do things. Specifically on certain pieces when I'm doing something, I don't know how it's going to end up, and I feel like it's like after the fact it's revealed to me what it really means, because the meanings become exponential and they add to each other with a little symbology or whatever it means to me. I've seen people interpret the things in their own ways, but there's still a synergy that happens within that. People pick up on that.
Pick up on the same thing that you
I think that's what inspires me. It's like communication. It's like, you do something so that you can express yourself or express your point of view. I feel the same about writing and music, and in my writing I feel it's communicating. And I guess, for people to understand where I'm coming from or, pick up on what's going on, that's what it's about.
How much spray paint do you go through in like a month?
Depends on the month. Sometimes I go nuts and paint a lot of things, and there's other times where I'll go through like 3-4 months and not really paint anything.
So it all kind of depends on like the amount of boredom and time that you have, basically.
Yeah.
So you feel like art has a story, there's kind of a message to translate, it kind of brings people together.
Yeah, definitely. It's like since like the beginning of time, like indigenous art has always been kind of my thing too. It's like looking at it, I can see a story behind all of that, and that's what I try to kind of keep the tradition alive.
So ever since you were a little kid, you had a desire to create.
Yeah, and a real strong sense of there being a presence in nature that was like life itself. So I think I really connected with that really early on.
Since you've had that connection through art, like, were you, because you're talking about God, right? Like,
Yeah,
were you
absolutely.
a Christian, like, before that kind of stuff happened, or did you feel like you experienced that through art?
I didn't really make the connection for a long time. I'm just saying that it's always been part of my conscious existence to realize that there was life and there was a presence of life, and it could be dampened or interfered with, or it could be accelerated and perceived. And I think I've always been drawn to the spiritual part of life, or more conscious of it than some people. So as far as becoming a Christian, I wouldn't say I really knew what I was doing to make a choice till I was in my early 20s.
Pretty much chaos, I think. Things just kind of fall together. Either they work or they don't. I'll try several different variations of something before I dial it into a point. I've spent a lot of time setting something up one way, and then all of a sudden I see it in a different way, and I'll change everything. You know, all of a sudden it's making more sense that way. And there is usually a method to my madness that, you know, there's meanings for it. And, you know, I try and use meanings that people can relate to with their own experiences. You know, they have their own similar thoughts. It's interesting to hear what people think of some of the things I do, because then they tell me their own story.
I like Banksy's stuff a lot just because I like stencils and stuff, and his stencils are nuts, and the stuff that he's been able to pull off is just crazy. But then also like other graffiti artists, like Duz is really cool, or like Sect.
When I was younger, it was just like a bunch of graffiti artists. Like I grew up loving art from like Scene, the godfather of graffiti, as they call him. Saber, basically all of MSK is like the crew down in California, and like they would do the craziest like heaven spots. It's like where you just stand and you're like over the freeways, and you like I don't understand how people can do that. Like
I grew up in the 80s emulating and aspiring to create art like skateboard graphics. That was a big influence on me, particularly the art of V.C. Johnson, Powell Peralta, Santa Cruz, Jim Phillips. They're pretty well known nowadays, but I always tried to create that style or copy it, and then throughout the years, Robert Williams became a big guy that I looked up to.
I just got a book by him.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I never
Definitely.
even knew about the guy before I got him.
Yeah, his oil paintings are pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then in the late 90s, a magazine came out called Juxtapose, and that was pretty progressive for the time, you know? So I definitely have always just had a different element to my work, but over the years it's ebbed and flowed between different styles, happiness. I just kind of portray whatever I'm going through, you know?
Well, H.R. Geiger is probably my favorite living artist. My favorite artist of all time is probably, it is Hieronymus Bosch. Just Bosch he's the ultimate surrealist, and his imagination, wow.
Yeah.
Actually, he doesn't have a whole lot, but his stuff was so big. His frescoes, they were tri-pane, and they were really, really comprehensive. A lot of work in them. If you look around my space, all my favorite artists, I got them plastered all over the place. I love art. I love specific types of art and certain artists, but I like to have as much of it around me in the area that I'm working, because it helps creativity. It's inspirational.
What's your favorite thing to take pictures of?
It's really not a favorite. I really like music festivals and special time of the day, like just with good lighting, happy people, good environment.
Do you feel like there was
more of a variety of things to take photos of in China, or more here, or less? Or?
I think it used to be more variety in China because there's more real people. For example, you see big tall building in the front side, and then you see people selling fruit by the side of the street. And now it's more like all modern cities. Over here it's different way, different. There's more beautiful sky you can look at, not so much in China.
Do you have a preferred medium?
Probably spray paint. Started dabbling in acrylics lately, but yeah, mostly spray paints and stencils and stuff.
How long have you been doing it? How much experience?
I started making stencils in probably like 7th grade.
I think that also kind of varies on like what kind of emotion I'm feeling. I mean, I notice if like I'm happy, it's going to be a lot more colorful, and if I'm angry, it's going to be a lot more intense, and just kind of even like my medias will change depending on how intense my mood is. Like I've noticed through like stages when I was upset or mad, I would use kind of like harsher substances such as like mesh wire or, you know, like really harsh spray paint.
But what is like your top like favorite medium?
I'd probably have to go with acrylic just because that's what I started off with. You know, when I was younger, we didn't really have a lot of money, and my mom had signed me up through the Giving Tree through Salvation Army, and the first gift that I got was just a set of acrylic paints, and I think I was about like 6 or 7 then, and it kind of just started off from there.
I was working on wood and metal, and I found plexiglass in 1998.
Never went back.
No, I started drawing with Sharpies, and then I developed these different ways where I reverse paint them. Detail first, working out on the back of the image. Over the years, I've elaborated them with paint pens, stickers, markers. Try to use really bright, vibrant colors that totally contradict the imagery, because a lot of them are pretty dark, but with the bright color, it kind of draws people in, and then the image might shock them, or, you know, be like,
Drawn in, they're like, what?
yeah, that's not what I expected, you know?
For me, it's important to have as much control over the material that I'm working with. It's limiting at times, though. It's difficult to make everything, but if I don't make it or manipulate it extremely, it's not mine. I pretty much can't just use somebody's stuff. I mean, if I'm doing something and somebody wants me to put their stuff on something, that's fine, but I want every pixel to be mine. I want to use my photography, I want to use my vectors, whatever it is, I want it to be mine. Most of the material on there, I used letters and documents of stuff that I had years ago, over a decade ago. First off, I built it out of plywood. And then I used an MDF trim to make the inner star for the mandala there, for the chaos star on that. It means a lot to me because it represents my past. Stuff from like a decade ago. It still matters now, of course it does, but the actual gravity of it has changed. There's a symbology on this because I used my own hands for each arrow, north, south, west, and east. I consider those transmitting or pushing out energy. Now the other hands are flipped over and they're grabbed around the arrows and they're pulling in. And that's kind of like the death aspect. The other images in there, some of them are things that I drew. A processor from a computer I built. I like it because it's a prime element. The actual text that I put on it, which not born with enough middle fingers, each of the hand figures has 6 fingers. But truly, do you have a middle finger with 6? No. The very center is a 9 Inch Nails song, but I alternated the color on certain letters, so there's like a little subliminal message in it. And of course, my motto, all work and no play makes art a dull boy.
The first thing I'd ever drawn was like my dad's face. After that, I kind of just got into the graffiti art when I went to Mexico and like really saw it like this impact it had on like my cousin and like his friends and how the culture was there. And then coming back up here and meeting people that did it too was pretty cool. Just like noticing that it's like it's a universal understanding.
Do you think that any of it is art if it's being paid for, or is that just kind of a personal thing? You'd rather not create for money?
I have to make money too, and I like doing art. And I spend a lot of time, and I spend a lot of my resources on the stuff I do.
Yeah.
I mean, just the way I live is indicative to, you know, the whole process of not just consuming but producing art in one way or the other. Yeah, I think commercial art can be really well done. I mean, this is out of a fashion magazine, but man, talk about inspirational. These people got it on. You know, I mean, it's Kate Hudson, you know, all kinds of money on this. But man, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is excellent work. It's very provocative. There's a lot of, you know, I mean, this is good stuff. You know, but it's commercial.
Yeah.
Do I like it? Yeah, I like it. And I have some stuff that is commercial.
Yeah.
I think one of the common threads in most of what I do is finding some unity in a lot of chaos, whether it's through a process or whether it's bringing a bunch of pieces together in collage. I like complex things, and my life has been worked out that way anyway, so it's just as well. But no, not one overall thing, except I hope when people are caught by a work of art and they're engaged with it, that it's like a plumb line's drawn right from God into their heart, and they have that intersection of the present moment with eternity, because the only way we can get a handle on eternity is to be present, and that's where they join. So that's something to give to other people, and it's something to aspire to in what I do myself.
So you feel as though everybody's art comes from the same place, that it's all flowing from the creator, basically, from a creator?
Yeah, I do. That's one way of saying it.
Yeah.
And I think that can be perverted or diverted or convoluted or interpreted a myriad of ways.
Yeah.
But I've always looked at people, for instance, in their faith life and their spiritual life, and said, every person is one facet of the jewel of God's being. So art's the same. Everyone's got a different point of view, a different part of the jewel. I've always loved that about art classes or any kind of assignment. It's like you give 20 people an assignment and they come up with 20 different ways of doing it. And the same thing, you give 2 million people the life assignment, they come up with 2 million different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
It's endlessly amazing and fascinating.
Oh, definitely. I don't think I'd do anything without there being a meaning to it, even if it's subliminal or you know, blatantly obvious. For me, there has to be a meaning, a direction. Even my abstract work, like the collage I did for this mixed media collage class, that I told the teacher it wasn't done until I lit it on fire and dropped it off a bridge. The actual fact is, that's what my intent was. Now, I did a composition on a piece of paper that to me was not satisfying, but it made me feel more satisfied to think of it as, I named it a moth to a flame. And when it's lit and floating down off a bridge, I think that would be the best composition. And I think anyone that was, you know, part of doing something like that would get it too. The meaning would be more than just some piece of paper.
I just try to raise awareness. I had a booth at Pike Place Market, and 10 million people a year come through there. So you could throw an image out and make people happy. You could tick them off. I kind of liked playing with that element of being down there. It was a really fun time, 2004 to last year, but all the good things coming to an end. I just had to transition into a new headspace and relocate. Bellingham's working out well as far as being a part of the board shop, and we're trying to take that art direction pretty far.
Yeah, I was going to ask how that works, working through the unknown board shop and being an artist at the same time, like if you can find time to create really easily and how it works.
I work there, but I don't get paid. So they're definitely backing me when I have a show. Every month I try to be involved with the art walk or constantly designing graphics. Everything's in-house. We have silk screening. We have just tons of different varieties of framing, space. You know, I'm able to work in a larger scale than I ever have before. So it's kind of new to me. At the market, I only had 4 square feet of space.
Yeah.
So I had to really stay within that. Now I'm able to fill a whole warehouse, which I did twice.
The thing I like about Mexico art is self-explanatory as far as like what the artist is trying to say. Like, I don't know, you'll see something and then you'll see like, wow, this person, they're really into structure. You can see the grid almost, but they do it all by hand, and like there's a focus to something in their art. Yeah.
Where do you see the future of your art going?
I would love to see my art like overseas and stuff. Like growing up, after starting the whole graffiti thing and like doing trains and stuff, like it's cool to know that your art's in other places. And after that, I was just like after I'd gotten caught, I decided I should try to be a little bit more formal about my expression, and in a way that more people can actually like see it, make sure that it actually gets across.
Do you ever envision something before you create it?
Yes, but I also just start creating and then find my way. So I'm not completely predictable with that. I'm more of a process person, so even if I envision something, I kind of submit my own plans to the process and let it alter and see what happens by the end. I think that gesture matters a lot to me. I like the physicality of doing big work because it's like dancing. You get that sense of energy that flows through you and onto the canvas. I like small work because it's like writing, where you have that really focused, intense, deep energy. I think the thing that I like the most is just to live a life that I feel is in a rhythm that's natural to me, and the more I do that, the more I create. And I think it's because I can draw away from the surface of life where that level flows, and the life that we live out here is very distracting. I think it pulls people away from their imagination and their spirit.
I agree, which is why art is so intoxicating, especially your style of art where there's like symbology and there's like meaning behind it. You can see the imagination.
I really believe that all art is symbolic language. That's why art can be useful for healing, because you can manipulate your own spiritual, psychological, symbolic language through this medium, and you can communicate with other people, which is part of being healed, is to be connected.
There's a ton of artistic resources around our city of Bellingham and Whatcom County as a whole. There's tons of studios like Makeshift, really great little studio, and a more recent one, this big, beautiful building in Lynden called Jansen Art Center. They've been around for about a year now, still pretty young, but they house every sort of art, ceramics, dance, music, paintings everywhere. They hold gallery events. They've got pianos around, and they have little concerts every now and then. And it's just a really great outlet for people, and I wanted to get a feel for why they do what they do and see what the facility looks like.
I'm Susan Marshall, and I'm the Executive Director of the Jansen Art Center. It opened with classes last spring, so in April officially, and then the grand opening was in August, and I've been here since October. Well, the renovation of the buildings, number one, because they were empty for 3 years, so there was a lot of construction involved in forming the studio spaces and making it beautiful and inhabitable. So. Well, we have had 3 exhibits of regional art, paintings and sculptures and things on the wall. So how we've seen it grow is we also have performances and classes, and so through the awareness of people in the county and the greater community, we have more visitors that are excited by not only the artistic renovation of this place, but all the art that's represented here. So, I think most of it was envisioned. I think all the potential in each space is still in process. You know, you get creative people in a space and anything can happen. But mostly I think that we're seeing the fruition of the ideas in the beginning. Well, I think it's important that every opportunity for people to be able to express themselves, you know, and to be exposed to other people's expression. You know, I think that art enhances our lives through the beauty it brings. You know, it's always in the eye of the beholder, but to bring that into whether you get to own it in your home or just see it on the wall somewhere else, I think that has a lot of value. The founder's dream was for it to be accessible to a lot of people in our community that maybe, you know, as I mentioned earlier, funding, you know, has been diminished in schools for kids to have access to trying different kinds of art, seeing different art, seeing performances, music, things like that was very important. We're a small staff, so I'm not the only one here, but a very small staff as a nonprofit, and we're excited to get more connected in the community. We have, you know, the opportunity to do some really fun events here to expose art to people, in you know, things to see, to hear, to feel, to now you can taste in our cafe and different things like that. So we just see a lot of opportunity. We'd like to get to a point where we can bring in more nationally known artists that might do workshops for our local artists that want to raise the bar a little. We're so close to Canada, it's wonderful to get Canadian visitors in, and they support art in a big way, and yeah, there's just a lot we can do. We're very excited. Well, I think that we have a lot of different disciplines, that's what we, you know, like music and different things that you mentioned, because we have the space, number one, but also wanting to kind of hit the highlights of traditional art. We have music, dance, ceramics, jewelry, fiber arts, painting, drawing, all those things. I think it's interesting when I meet artists that do more than one. It's not that uncommon, right? Musicians that paint or do clay work or things like that. I think once people are kind of in touch with their creative part of them, they can explore it in so many different ways. And the thing that excites me is when people come here who say, I'm not creative, I can't do anything. You know, and they're here maybe just to enjoy it on a certain level. It's when they realize that there is that in them, and that they can, maybe they won't be a professional artist, but that they can derive pleasure out of creating something on their own. And I think especially for kids too, there's so many parts of, say, music, or say if you're doing a weaving, where things like math play in, and so there's ways that are valuable in other traditions like business. About 150, you know, in the 150 range. As far as artists, on the walls in our exhibit, there's about 35. There's another probably 100 artists in our gallery gift shop. And then instructors who are artists in their own right, we have probably 35 or 40, though a number of them show their art here as well. We're open from 8 to 5, Monday through Wednesday. And then we're open 7 days a week. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday we're open until 8 because we have music in the cafe. And then we also are open Sunday 11 to 5.
So, at the end of everything, after interviewing everybody and getting everybody's insight on why they do what they do, I feel a lot more confident about my art being important to society, and just art in general having an impact on society throughout history, and still looking into the future, how much we can do with visual art to translate whatever message it is that we have. The basic thing that I learned is that art really is a simple thing. It's just a universal language that is used to translate a message, no matter what message that is. It can be just a personal, emotional message of what you're going through at the time, or it can be something to do with society, something you might want to change or bring awareness to people. Art itself isn't necessarily super important, it's what you do with it. It's to what extreme you take it and what you use it for. It can be so many different things, and the level of impact that you have is really up to you.
Macho, give me a break. That's all, folks.